The German vanguard made its way through the eastern forests, but it was rough going, and the terrain caused the forces to become spread out. The panzers were lagging behind, and the vanguard would have to rely on its infantry and mortars if they encountered further resistance. The first to emerge from the forests outside a small village was the scout cars and the officer in his Panzerbefehlswagen. The view that met them was far from anything they had hoped. The Soviets had prepared their defenses and were waiting for them. Stretches of barbed wire were laid out to protect two bunkers facing the tree line. The barrels of large anti-tank cans could be seen through the narrow slits, and infantry surrounded the constructions, protecting them from a direct assault. The troop transports halted long enough to drop off the mortar teams, while the scout cars moved into position to start a barrage to prepare for the infantry assault. Again, we rolled the defense line scenario, and the Soviet forces were deployed in the middle third of the table, along with their defenses. There were three objectives: one in the small wood, one by the road junction, and one in the village. Reinforcements would start to arrive in turn 3 for the Germans and turn 5 for the Soviets. The Germans had to pull 2 battle counters for the objectives before they kicked off with 13 orders for the 4 vehicles. First, the officer spotted for the mortars and made his communication check. The shot was very accurate. A direct hit on the Maxim team. Two men were struck, and cover did nothing to save them. But the last man made his morale check. The indirect hits needed force to pin the Maxim team and AT gun. A truck hiding behind the bunker was pinned on 2 up. Next, a scout car spotted for the next mortar team. The shot was inaccurate. A sneaky die got added to the 2d6, so the distance was re-rolled. The result was very much the same as the last barrage. Another direct hit wiped out the rest of the Maxim team. Again, the gun escaped the indirect hit, and the truck was already pinned. The second scout car successfully spotted for the last mortar team. The shots deviated towards the field, but got a direct hit against both infantry and gun. Only one man was hit. He went down, but their morale held. 3 hits against the AT gun, but the bunkers stopped them all. The Soviets also started with more orders than they could use. The AT gun in the bunker took aim at the 231 and the Panzerbefehlswagen. The shell whizzed past the 231 and struck the Panzer head-on. The gun needed to beat 11 to penetrate at that range, and the officer was fine. The infantry got out of the open to take cover from the mortars. The men from the forward aid station also started running for cover. The rest of the units were pinned by preliminary bombardment, so the Soviets tried to remove some pins. The skies remained empty and the Germans rolled their orders. The first 231 tried to spot, but even with help from the 263, it had trouble with the communication. The other 231 didn't do any better, and not even the officer could get the mortars to do anything. And with that, the turn was over. The Soviets still had plenty of orders. The AT gun tried 2 shots at the 231. It didn't manage to spot it at first, but when it did, the shell flew past it and into the forest. The now unpinned infantry and AT gun went into ambush, preparing for the German push. More infantry went into ambush, and the small team finally reached the house. And then more Germans started to arrive. "13 orders. The 231 called for a mortar barrage in a nearby wood. The shots landed just beyond the wood, causing 3 indirect hits on infantry. The first did nothing. The second one landed closer, but the cover saved the unit. The third hit also did nothing. The officer also called for a barrage, but even with the help of the 263, failed the comp check. The other 231 had more luck, and a barrage landed near the ruined building. The spotter ordered harassing fire, and every nearby unit suffered an indirect hit, needing force to pin. The first half-track moved up and opened fire in the woods, but no target was spotted. Another half-track followed and spotted the infantry. The infantry sprung its ambush, trying to pin the vehicle on a 6. The MG raked the forest and scored 1 hit, but the men were well hidden behind the trees. With the threat of an ambush gun, the last half-track moved up so the infantry could disembark. The MG team fired suppressive fire on the enemy infantry with no luck, and followed up with direct fire, but scored only 1 hit. They failed the cover save, and the 1 casualty caused them to be pinned. The rifle team tried to fire directly, but they completely failed to spot the enemy. The Soviets rolled 7 orders. The AT gun fired at the nearest half-track. They rolled 2 spot checks, both successful. The first shot missed, but the second hit. The shell glanced off, pinning the crew and almost scaring them off. The other AT gun fired twice at the rifle squad. First tried to pin them, but they were safe in the wood. Then directly, spotting them and needing another 5 to hit. The small infantry team went in ambush, and with the last unit pinned, the Soviet turn was over. The last German unit rolled out of the forest, and they rolled 10 orders. The officers tried to spot again, and this time the mortar teams listened. Barrage deviated away from the bunker, but scored 2 indirect hits. 1 wasted against the pinned truck, and 1 with no effect. The 231 also tried spotting. The communication failed, but the 263 came to their aid. The spotter round was aimed at the ruins, but deviated wildly. Harassing fire was ordered, but still only one unit was affected, suffering 3 indirect hits. They were thoroughly rattled by the experience. The MG team started raking the enemy infantry with lead. They spotted them and fired a salvo that scored 1 hit. 1 man went down, but the unit remained in the fight. The second salvo didn't come. A half-track moved up and unloaded its passengers into the woods. The infantry in the farmhouse sprung their ambush and fired at the rifle squad. They didn't spot at first, but then they opened fire and scored 2 hits. Both were stopped by the trees. The rifle squad was ordered to assault the enemy, but they hesitated. The MG team received the same order and charged immediately. They got an additional 6 attacks, and their ferocious assault scored 10 hits against the Soviet soldiers. The woods did not grant nearly enough cover to save them. Finally, Soviet reinforcements started arriving. But they rolled only 5 orders. An officer drove up to the building and took a position in the window. With a clear view of the battlefield, he immediately radioed for mortars. Mortars received the order, but the spot round deviated away from the German infantry. Four vehicles suffered indirect hits, needing 6 to pin most of them, but 4 against the half-track. For the last order, the AT gun opened fire on the unpinned 231. He had no trouble spotting it, but the first shot missed, and so did the next. The Germans got 12 orders, and immediately spent 3 to activate the mortars again. The 231 spotted and aimed for the farmhouse. The round deviated wildly, and harassing fire was ordered again. 3 indirect hits, but 1 was wasted against the truck. The AT gun was pinned on a 4, but the bunker saved it. The infantry house was also hit, but the cover didn't save them this time. The officer also spotted, but needed help from the 263. The small squad in the farmhouse and the officer were both hit directly. The small squad took 1 hit and 1 man went down. They failed their morale check and ran away. Two hits were scored on the officer's unit, but 1 was saved by cover. The remaining men were pinned. With all the infantry pinned and only anti-tank cannons active, the infantry started legging it, hoping to get across the field before more reinforcements arrive. With nothing more to do, the Germans removed some pins. Some more Soviet reinforcements arrived, but not many. They answered the German infantry push with their own infantry. The first unit moved forward while firing at the rifle squad. Spotting them easily. They only scored one hit, but it did kill a man. And their morale held. In the village, a sniper took position. The AT gun turned to fire at the running infantry, spotting them twice. A high explosive shell slammed into the unit, followed by another. They rolled for both explosions at once, but got only one hit, and the unit escaped unharmed. The other gun aimed for a half-track and had 2 clear shots. The first shot hit and blew the transport to pieces. The passengers scrambled to get out, but 3 men were killed. The Soviets had run out of unpinned units to order, and decided to remove more pins. The roaring engines of a Stuka could be heard above the din of battle. The plane was immediately ordered to drop a bomb on the infantry. The bomb wasn't very accurate, but the Stuka could reroll 1 die for being a dive bomber. It scored an indirect hit, needing 2 up to pin the infantry. But the Soviet troops got scared upon hearing the trumpets of Jericho. The infantry kept pushing, firing on the move, but scored only 1 hit. The shot was effective, and it scared the infantry away. The MG team also advanced, firing at the infantry they opened. Many shots were fired, none found their target. The 231 spotted again, ordering the mortars to pummel the infantry. The shot was very accurate and got an indirect hit against each unit, needing force to pin them. Only the platoon command was pinned. Infantry moved into the wood and fired at the bunker. They barely saw something moving inside it and scored only 1 hit against the wall. The rest of the Soviet troops arrived. And with 13 orders, they could punish the Germans. The officer spotted for the mortars again. It deviated away from most of the troops and landed by the woods. 3 indirect hits were scored, needing force to pin. Only the half-track was affected. The sniper took aim at the MG team, spotting him twice, but needed 5s to hit. The T-26 trundled forward on the road and fired its machine guns against the rifle squad. It spotted them and got 2 hits, both lethal, and the squad was pinned. The infantry kept advancing, shooting at the MG team. They spotted them easily enough, but scored only 2 hits. One man was saved by cover, but another unit was pinned in the open. The other infantry unit moved into the village to secure the objective and fire at the rifle squad. Scoring 5 hits this time. The save was decent, but not enough. The squad was wiped out. A foot patrol started moving across the road, firing against the wood, but it was out of range. The NKVD detachment drove down the road and ran into the farmhouse. Once in position, they opened fire on the woods as well, but wasn't able to spot the target. The bunker gun fired at the 231 again, spotting it easily, but was still not able to hit it. The other gun fired at the infantry in the wood. It had some trouble at first, but managed to spot them once. And just hit. Two men were caught in the blast and both died. The rest of the men were pinned. A truck moved up and it was over to the bloodied Germans. They only received 6 orders. The Stuka dived again, dropping a large bomb. An indirect hit against the jeeps, and they were pinned. The 231 spotted, and the deviation was good. Three indirect hits. The truck was pinned. The officer was pinned, but the infantry in the open was fine. An MG team moved into the woods, firing at the bunker, but couldn't get a clear shot. The Germans then removed a couple of pins, and their turn was over. "12 orders and another opportunity to deal out some punishment." The foot patrol advanced, firing at the MG team. They scored only 1 hit, but it was enough to take out a man, and the last man standing ran away. The T-26 kept moving and firing, spotting and scoring a single hit on the rifle squad in the woods. 1 man went down, and the rest decided to rout. Beyond the Call of Duty was played on the plane. It dropped a small bomb that scattered onto the foot patrol, causing an indirect hit, but couldn't pin them. The NKVD detachment fired the MG squad, spotting them once. Five hits were scored. Their cover did not prevent the squad from being wiped out. Infantry was sent up to form a defensive line. The AT gun made another attempt on the 231, still spotting it. Miss, and miss. The sniper tried another shot, but nothing was within range. And that's all they could do this turn. 10 orders. The plane moved around and fired its MGs at foot patrol. They spotted them and got one hit. One man went down, but they remained unshaken. The officer spotted again, hoping to soften infantry. The spot round ended in a good position and 2 indirect hits were scored. The infantry in the field was pinned and got no help from their cover. The infantry in the house, however, passed their cover save. The 231 spotted and succeeded. The spotter round deviated away from the enemy line and scored 3 indirect hits. A 6 was needed to pin the T-26. The jeeps were already pinned, and a 4 was needed against the detachment. Infantry moved up but stayed hidden behind the wood, and the command squad drove up to the other wood. And lastly, the second 231 moved into the woods so they could get some cover while getting its gun into action. It fired a high explosive shell at the bunker. It found an opening, but needed a 6 to hit. "12 orders for the Soviets. They started by firing 2 direct shots with the AT gun at the infantry by the wood. He spotted them once and got a solid hit. Two men went down and their morale held. The other gun fired back at the 231, spotting it once and twice. But it was quite far away, so 6s was needed to hit. The foot patrol ran forward, keeping the bunker between themselves and the enemy. The units in the farmhouse went into ambush. And with all other units pinned, the Soviets ended their turn, tried removing some of those pins. Eight orders for the Germans. The plane dove towards the road, aiming a bomb near the tank. It deviated quite a bit, landing between the fields. It got an indirect hit on the infantry in the house, but had no effect. The officer spotted for the mortars again, and aimed near the farmhouse. It deviated towards the road. 3 indirect hits. The jeeps were pinned again, and looking for force against the infantry in the house. The 231 tried the same, aiming at the same spot. 4 indirect hits were allocated. Looking for 6 against the tank, and 4 against the infantry. 1 unit pinned. One saved by cover. And a pinned NKVD detachment. The 231 in the wood moved forward to get a clear shot on the T-26. It spotted it, but missed completely. The Soviets got 9 orders. They tried mortar fire again, succeeding on the comms check. But the spot round deviated quite far from where it was aimed. They ordered harassing fire, resulting in the 231 getting both a direct and an indirect hit. They needed to beat a 7 to destroy it. It was pinned, but remained in the fight. The gun in the bunker tried a few more shots at the other 231. It spotted it once, but still needed 6 to hit. The other gun tried to take out the infantry, but couldn't spot them. The T-26 just moved full speed towards the woods, and the foot patrol ran forwards, getting into position to threaten the German infantry. The infantry in the house started running across the open. When the German push stopped, the Soviets decided it was time for a counter-push. The Germans also got 9 orders. Again, the plane released a bomb against the tank. This time it was fairly accurate. It scored a direct hit against the T-26, needing to beat a 4 to destroy it. The officer had some trouble with the communication, but the 263 helped again. The spotter round landed between the field and the house. 1 direct and 3 indirect hits. The infantry suffered 1 hit, but they made their save. The detachment in the house was unaffected. The last indirect hit was forgotten about. With the T-26 out of action, the 231 decided to hide from the AT gun. The half-tracks took its place to answer the infantry push. The first one failed to spot. The other one spotted the foot patrol, but missed with all its shots. And that's all the Germans could do that turn. The Soviets only got 5 orders this turn. They tried using most of them on another barrage, but the comms test failed. The gun fired at both the half-tracks. It managed to spot both of them, hit, and a miss. completely destroyed. The command squad crawled out of the wreck with only one casualty. The other gun aimed for their infantry again, but they had been reduced to a small team, so it couldn't spot them. The foot patrol pushed onwards and fired at the command squad. They just managed to spot them. They needed 6s and scored only 1 hit, which was saved. And the push continued. The Germans needed to make something happen and got 9 orders. The plane sped towards the truck, firing its MGs. Needing 6s, it missed completely. The surviving half-track remained stationary and peppered the foot patrol. It had the clearest of shots and needed 5s to hit. All miss. And 2 hits. Two men went down, but their morale was good. The officer still had some communication issues, and this time the 263 couldn't help. With few active spotters left, the 231 made a desperate attempt at halting the infantry advance. It deviated back towards the Germans, so the firing mission was aborted. The remaining infantry moved into the wood and spotted the enemy. 2 shots were fired, looking for 3 up. Everything else was pinned, so the turn was over. Another 10 orders for the Soviets. The infantry fired back into the woods. They spotted them once, but had quite a few shots that hit on 2 up. And the German squad was very dead. With most infantry wiped out and the rest of the forces pinned, the Germans decided to pull back. The Soviet defensive line was too strong, and the vanguard needed to wait for the panzers to have a chance of punching through.